Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make the end for the top 362. Got a couple of dimensions. This is 83.5. I'm going to change that to 84, 51.8, turn that into 52 mil. So I'm going to turn it upside down on the piece of metal. So I've got my piece of metal here. So on this end here, I'm going to have 52 millimeters. Just going to scribe that on with a rule, 52 millimeters. Right to the very outside edge, and the other side we were going to be 84 millimeters, so scratching 84 millimeters on there, putting it dead on the 84 and scratching a line across right to the very outside. And from there I just take a roll to the two marks right across the outside and I scribe across there, and that gives me the angle that I'm looking for. From there we've got a couple of folds. The first one, this fold here, is 12 millimeters, and from the outside to the next fold is 34 millimeters. So I need to add 34 millimeters to that, putting it dead on the 34, and on 34 at that end as well. Scribing that, putting the roll across those 2 points. So that's my going to be my cut line. So I'll just mark that with an arrow where I'm going to cut it. Same on that side. I'll put that into the guillotine and shadow cut it. Coming in from the ends, it's 21 millimeters on this side and 21.5 on this side. Just to give it a wee bit more clearance, I'll make it 21 on both sides. So all I need to do is take the scratch block, set it up to 21.5 millimeters, check it, just tap it on the table to get the size that I want, 21.5. So I'm just going to scribe that down the side. I hope that's in camera shot. We'll do it on the other side this way. So there's my 21.5 to these 2 points here. On the back edge, this edge here, we've got a 16 millimeter radius on both sides. So I will scribe a 16 millimeter line across the back. So setting this up at 16, take my sheet, I scratch a 16 mil line right across it. Same across the end. And on the other end, so I've got this little point here, 16 by 16, and on the other end 16 by 16. I'm going to centre punch those. So very gently, just a very light centre punch. Same on the other end. And then I'm going to set my dividers up to probably about 15.5 if I can. And I'm just going to scribe that round there. So I get my line round there. Same on the other end. And that's what I'm going to radius my corners off at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the guillotine and I'm going to cut this off here now. So I've shadow cut it dead on the line. Now what I need to do is mark where it's going to cut. So I'm going to cut down this line here and from this point out to the outside edge. And what I need to do is I need to square in off that angular face. So taking a square, sitting it on that angular face, and it comes into the 21 millimeters, which is that point there. So I simply put my square up to there and I draw my line in to that point there. Same on the other end, into that corner, draw my line out there. And that's the line that I'm actually going to cut down back to the corner, back to that point there. So I'm going to cut those out with a cut-off disc. Remember, you need to use your safety glasses plus the full face shield. You've got to have 2 forms of eye protection when you're doing the cutting here. So that's what you're going to do for that. And then I had to have a 12 millimeter line down there. So I'll set my scratch block up at 12 millimeters. and put a line down there at 12 millimeters, and that's my other fold line. So notching the corner out, folding on this point here, folding on this point here, radiusing that corner, notching that, fold, fold, radius that corner as well on that end there. So there you go. That's for the top. I'll do the base now. So this is the sheet for the base, 362 wide by, what was it, 420 high. I've already marked my 16mm and 16mm and centre punched it and drawn my radius. You can sand that off with the sanding disc on the grinder. You don't need to use a cut-off disc for that. So just for the dimensions for this one, I've got this outside dimension here from the very base to this top point here of 363. This one on this side is 331.6. Round that up to 332 millimeters. So just marking that on there. 332 millimeters on this side, right to the outside edge. The other side we had the 363, so 363 millimeters, right to the outside edge. We then put our rule across here from the very outside to the very outside and draw our line across. That's giving the angle for the top. From that position to the first fold is 27.5 mil, and to the next one is 20. So from the very outside into this line that I've just drawn is 47.5 millimeters. Should be able to mark that at 47.5. Putting this on here at 47.5, scribing that. Same on the other end, 47.5. That's the line I'm going to cut it off on. So I will take that to the guillotine and shadow cut it on that line there. So I've cut my line. My first fold had to be 20 millimeters, so I can take 20 millimeters on the scratch block, scribe it across the end of the job, and that will leave a balance here of 27.5 to the next fold. Coming in from the sides, this one is 28.5 mil, and this says 28. Do them both at 28.5 millimeters, gives you a wee bit more movement, a wee bit more clearance. 28.5. So just scratching that down the side to the 47 mil line, same on the other side. So where's my felt tip pen? This is the line across here, same on this side, into that point there. Now once again, square in from the end. So you're putting the square on the end and coming back to this point. Same on this side. And that's going to be my notch out. So that's going to be cut out with a cut-off disc. Safety glasses, full face shield, 2 forms of protection. Now if you look at the drawing here, it shows that the notch has got a bit of a kick in it one way and it kicks back on the other side. I don't do that, just square in from the very outside edge. It'll leave a wee bit more material here, and it'll leave it'll leave a slightly bigger gap here and a wee bit more material on here. Doesn't matter for what we're doing, you'll get away with it. It's just when it was computer drawn, it actually made it really, really accurate. So that's what you're going to do in terms of notching that one. You will sand off those base corners again, already mentioned, and you will mark it out and do your cuts on the top with the cut-off disc, and then we're ready to fold. Just remember, when you go to cut it with the cut-off disc, you clamp it down with 2 vice grips to these steel tables so that it doesn't vibrate and move around on you, otherwise you'll end up missing the line and making a hash of it. So clamp it down nice and tight before you start cutting. Right, so for the lid, it's really important that you get these angles here right. This angle here is going slightly past 90 degrees and this is slightly less. So this angle here on the short side of the lid would be 85 degrees and this one would be 95. On the other side, this is 85, and the other one is, this one here is 95, and this one on the back here is 85. So if you get a protractor, 90 degrees, if you just step it off out to one side, 5 degrees, it's sitting on currently 85. So what that means is this angle in here is 85 degrees, so it's not quite square. And this angle here becomes 95 on this side here. So once you've got your protractor set up to that, when you do your folds, you can actually check it just with the protractor set with it to 5 degrees to one side. You could put the 5 out the other side, so it goes to 95 on that side, which means this angle here would be 95 and this one would be 85. So when you do your folds, you want to check it with this. So, and having said that, what I want to do is write on my job here, make sure my sheet is in the camera. So the short side, the 82 millimeter side, 82 millimeters on this side. The first fold is going to be 85 degrees, and the second fold is going to be 95 degrees. On the other end of the job, 113 millimeter end, the first fold is going to be 95 degrees, and the second fold is going to be 85 degrees. So now that I've marked that, I'm going to do the fold. So in terms of checking the angle, hey Sam, in terms of checking the angle with the protractor, I've folded this up, and this 113 mil end, this is the end for that. So if I've got the angle and I'm checking for the 95 degrees going past the square, or 85 internal, I sit that on there and I just bring this, setting that dead on the 95. The 95 is out here, which makes this the 85 angle here, and that's what I was checking. So putting this along the edge here, you can see that the piece of steel is folded to that angle, and this angle here on this side, that actually goes to the other side, and that sits on there, and that shows that it's folded to the correct position as well. So this would come along, it kicks back, and then this one actually runs parallel with this side if you've actually done it correctly, and vice versa on the other end of the drawing. The wind's blowing the drawing around. When I've got the protractor on this side, put the angle on there, we get the angle correct at this point, swap it to the other side, we get the angle correct there. So it's leaning out this side, but this is parallel across here as opposed to the other end. So that's the two sides folded. Now we just need to come back to the fold positions to put our radius on, and we'll do that shortly. Okay, so folding up the body. When I've marked it out, I've got this piece here, so it's 376 millimeters to the fold line, so that's going right from the very end here across to our fold line here, this being the offset. So that's actually the center line of the roll. So with this drawing here, we have on the shorter side, which is the 376 side, we have a 95 degree angle and a 95 degree angle. Now one is folded on one side of the sheet and the other is folded on the inside of the sheet. So the top two folds are actually folded on the other side of the sheet. This fold, and the two radiuses at the bottom are all folded internally. So the four folds are internal, the other two are external, which means if that's the case, my line at this position here, which is the 47 millimeter line, is an internal fold. So fold, I just write fold on it. I've got my roll position, which means that the other 20 millimeters on the other end of the sheet has to be on the other side. So what I want to do is I want to flip my sheet over, and I'm going to mark 20 millimeters on it. Already got 20 set up for 20. So scratching that along there, and I have to turn my sheet around, and I do my 20 on the other side as well. So that's the two external folds. If I turn it back over, so this will be the internal fold at the 47 millimeter position. This is the center line of my roll. Center line. So I've got that marked out correctly. Now I'll go back to the small side. So 76 millimeters to there. So if I take the drawing on the short side, this has to be a 95-degree angle. The other one on the other side is a 95-degree angle. If I flip to the other end, 85-degree angles on both sides of the sheet. So this here is 85 degrees. Flip it over, 85 degrees at that point. It's really crucial that you actually get those on the right ends of the sheet. Otherwise, when you come to fold it up, your toolbox lid, top of the body and the top of the lid will not fit together at all. So you really need to focus on the shorter side having the two 95-degree folds, the longer side, the two 85-degree folds. Focus on that. Right, so now we're going to use a 32mm diameter bar, which is going to give us a radius of 16 millimeters. So we just need to set the radius bar up in the very center of the V block so that we've got an equal space on either side. So the reason, if we try and fold this and we try and fold it dead on the line, because the line would have to line up with smack in the very center of the bar, we can't actually see that where that is because the curve going away from us, we can't actually get a very definitive point as to where we're going to fold it. So what we're going to do is these offset lines that I put on here, they line up with the very front face of the bed. So the distance from the very center of the V block, the center of the former, 32mm former, to the front face of the V block is 55.5 millimeters. So what I've done is I've taken my sheet, can I see that where that is? Bring the camera in a bit more. I've got my line where I'm actually going to fold it, and I've offset 55 millimeters, 55.5 millimeters. So this chart is sitting on the front of the press brake. We're using the 32mm forming bar and we're using the 50mm V. So if we come down the column to the 50mm V, this dimension here, what I'm talking about is the 55.5 millimeters. And up the top it says the center of V to the front edge of the V block. So that's where we get our 55.5 millimeters. So when I fold it, I'm going to line that up at that point there. This is my 55mm line here, and I need to bring the head of the press down very close to the sheet, not quite touching. I can let my sheet go, and then I'm going to line up the 55mm line absolutely flush with the front of the press brake. Need to get your head in very close to the press and look vertically down on it so that you're actually getting the line smack on where you need it. It's just wiggling from side to side. So I'm in the right position so I can do my fold. So I turn it around and I put the other side in. So once again, the 255 lines came to from the very center or into the center of the box itself. So I line it up on my 55.5 millimeter line again, and that will fold it dead on the line in the center. Guarantee it. Done it many times. So that's the base folded up. Exactly the same process with the lid. My fold line is at this position here, which was the 82mm side. The 113mm side has got a slightly longer leg. So from the 113mm line I measured in another 55.5 millimeters. I can punch straight through on that, knowing that it's going to fold exactly where I want it. Straight through. Turning it around to the other side, lining up the 55mm mark again, folding straight through. So that's the lid done as well.